Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to the 95th audio chat on the Q News Patriot Rumble Channel series. I'm the Q News Patriot, joined again today by Dr. Kirk Elliott, PhD. My name is SG Anon. Dr. Kirk has been gracious enough to take time out of his travel schedule and actually time from away from his family to bring us a discussion and a short update about the events happening in the world, things occurring right now with the Federal Reserve, with worldwide markets in response to the events that just went down yesterday, and what is clearly a looming expanded conflict that Anons and Patriots have been talking about for a very long time. All of that is sort of converging in the fore in front of us, and it's very relevant to the discussion that we should be having, I think, from a financial lens between now and November 5th and the unprecedented events that are no doubt going to follow through December and into early next year. Dr. Kirk, I appreciate you spending time, especially away from your family. My audience is no stranger to you. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Well, it's my pleasure. There's like we were talking about earlier off the air. It's like family is very, very important to both you and I. And to me, all of the viewers, all of the listeners, all of my clients, they're like extended family, right? So taking 30, 45 minutes out to do things like this is so important too. And I love to do it. And you had said, something that Anons and Patriots have been talking about for a while, which is these wars and rumors of wars. Not to diminish the Anons and Patriots, but you know what? Prophetically, this has been talked about for thousands of years with Gog and Magog and everything that's going on, right? It's like, wow, don't mean to diminish the current modern day prophets, right? But this has been going on for a long time. And we might be living in the times of fulfillment of prophecy, which is crazy.
It absolutely is. And sort of I want to get started on that. A lot of those prophecies, Dr. Kirk, talk about a golden age. They talk about a period of mankind where some sort of fair and truly equal and I think transparent and justified way of value exchange happens in the world. It talks about a number of different schools, including the Bible, talk about a period of peace on earth. They talk about prosperity and abundance. And we know that that's not possible in the system that we've had for the last several thousand years. And you and I have talked on air a number of times that that system is coming down and it's being crashed intentionally. Before we get to that discussion, which is more of a philosophical discussion about what's on the other side, can you take us through some of the events that sort of point you in the direction of thinking, wow, these are prophetic times that we're experiencing right here, right now?
Well, for sure. So, number one, everything they kind of mix together, though. These stories are going to mix together, the philosophical side and where we are today side. So, if you look back, I'm sure there's been generation after generation that's thought, oh, the end of days are coming, they're here. It's like, no, they couldn't be, because you couldn't have Revelation 13, where it says nobody can buy or sell without this mark of the beast, right? And so until you have something that's digital, now it becomes really quite simple, right? It's like when you've got everything that World Economic Forum and the evil Klaus Schwab and the Bank for International Settlements and the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and central banks around the world. I mean, this isn't just one entity. This is a lot of entities that are saying, you know what? Your digital social profile, your social credit score is the basis of policing the people. So it's like, Kirk, how can banking police the people, right? Don't you need martial law and everything in the streets? It's like, no. How better to control a person other than controlling their buying or selling based on their ideology, right? Well, with digital money, that's really easy to do because every transaction is digital. You have a footprint in the digital world. They know your spending habits. They know what you like, who you give to, who you donate to, what kind of food you eat, how much gas you buy, and they know everything, right? So at some point, if you were to go to a farmer's market, let's say SG, and give them a $20 bill, nobody knows you did it, right? It was still private. But in a digital world, they would even know that, right? They would even know that. And they're not stopping it, though, at just the financial piece of it. They're taking your digital social profile and social credit score and applying it now to your free speech. And this is why people are being debanked. all over the world because of their message of truth, their message of, oh, financial freedom, health freedom, economic freedom, personal freedom, right? It's like those are the things that
Anything
get
counter
people
globalist.
so they can't receive donors. Yeah. I mean, even in Australia yesterday, they're basically, going after the social media people there that are actually speaking truth. So that all adds into somebody's digital social profile. We've seen it here, not just recently, but even going back years. Lois Lerner days, right? When you had groups like Family Research Council and pro-family groups that got debanked because of their pro-family message. Well, now it's much more extreme. And you see what's happened to people like Alex Jones and others, where it's like, oh my word, it's an all-out assault on freedom, right? So to me, you don't need troops with guns to enforce things. All you need is a digital money that says, all right, I'm not going to let you buy or sell anything at the grocery store or get gas or pay your rent or pay your utilities or anything because we don't like your message. Your social credit score doesn't measure up to what we want it to be. Isn't that an amazingly clean way to enforce your ideology on people? I mean, so as you look at it now, Revelation 13 can actually happen. And we can go through the timeline, going all the way back to 2019 of executive orders of projects from the Bank for International Settlements, like Project Icebreaker, Project Aurora, and now Project Orem. Project Orem is a creepy one because I mean that's the newest one from the BIS. And but what that says is, the central bank digital currency is basically the repository of all of our digital assets at the central bank level, right? But what Project Orem does, and this is going to tick off people who think that their blockchain, decentralized blockchain like Bitcoin or whatever else, is going to be this alternative money system. You know what? It's still digital. And what Project Orem does is it brings together centralized, basically digital
Nodes.
currency and with decentralized private financial institution tokens all into one. Well, when they say decentralized blockchain tokens from financial institutions, to me, that's like Ethereum, that's like Bitcoin, that's like Dogecoin, that's like all of these things that they now under a unified ledger bring all into one. At this point, it is all encompassing. Well, what's not encompassed in that? A tangible asset like silver that you have on you, right? If it's not digital, it's out of the system. And this is why I'll continue to shout it from the rooftops until there's nobody else to listen, because it's that important that if it's digital, I think it's real easy to flip off the switch of whether you can access your money. Case in point is, remember when Russia and Ukraine started going at it for the first time, like a couple years ago, however long it's been. Well, what did Coinbase do, the digital wallet that people house their Bitcoin and all their other cryptos in? What did they do? They said, if you've got an IP address from Russia, we're flipping off the switch. You can't access any of your Bitcoin or anything else. So people said, well, great, that's awesome. You're going to stick it to the evil Putin and those Russians who are attacking Ukraine, our friend, right? So, but take that one step further. What if they determine the IP address of Americans or the IP address of Christians or the IP address of anybody that's donated to a conservative political party? Anything that is actually different than what they say could actually have that switch turned off. This is where digital currency becomes very dangerous moving forward, in a world where they want to pull everything into one unified ledger, tokenized environment where they can change ownership of all those assets with the flip of a switch.
Dr. Kirk, I want to ask a question because it's just spawned off in my head here regarding this discussion about the digitization of a lot of the things that are happening out there, and sort of it's almost like a digital death that we're experiencing inside of the value system, because we have this vortex of Wall Street weakening, the underpinnings of really all of the financial and fiscal infrastructure in the Western world weakening. We know that there's been a digital information age push for a long time. So I'm going to ask a sort of an obtuse sounding question. With respect to the events that the Federal Reserve has been discussing undertaking now for a couple of months, the recent interest rate additions that we saw, the adjustments that we saw coming out of European pulpits just over the last couple of weeks, and then just yesterday we see yet another haphazard attempt for the life of President Trump, a man who has talked a number of times about concentrating wealth back in America, recently mentioned a sovereign American wealth fund. How do these events tie into what you just mentioned a moment ago about the consolidation of a multi-nation universal ledger and this attempt at this globalist infrastructure?
Well, in a broad scope, broad brush, any president who's ever talked about removing the consolidation of power away from central banks, whether it was Kennedy or Lincoln or now Trump, there's been attempts on their life. The banking interests are very large and evil. I mean, I just think that it's evil. Now, I'm not saying that that's what it was. I just think that it's kind of a weird comparison to draw, because what Trump wants, he wants to demolish the globalist agenda, right? I'm just trying to connect dots here, right? He wants to demolish this global agenda, make America great again, bring jobs back to America rather than overseas, which is why he wants to put excessive tariffs on foreign goods. And you've got the leftist media that says, well, this is going to cause prices to go up. Trump is going to be bad for inflation. It's like, if nothing else were done, that's a true statement, right? If you put tariffs on foreign goods and 70% of everything we consume is a foreign good, then things are going to be more expensive. But what is the flip side of that? He said, no, I want to put tariffs on foreign goods. And economically, as we start to connect dots, when things from other countries are more expensive, people start to buy American where there is no tariffs, right? So now there's demand for US goods. When
Turning the
manufacturing is
Titanic.
done here, yeah, people are going to start working because jobs always follow manufacturing. When people are working, they got more money to spend. When they spend, companies are going to hire more. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy of greatness, of making America great again. And this is not a new concept, SG. This concept of putting excise taxes and tariffs on imports is exactly what the founding fathers envisioned. We didn't have an income tax, let alone a progressive income tax in America, until about 100 years after America was formed, right? And so when we started, the way that the government made money was through excise taxes on foreign imported goods. So Trump wants to bring us back to and abolish personal income taxes. In exchange for that, when Trump says he wants to abolish personal income taxes, it doesn't mean the government's going to be broke. It just means they're replacing the source of income. And now foreign governments, foreign countries are going, and foreign companies are going to pay for that rather than us, right? So when you look at what he wants to do, of course, there's going to be opposition to that by a lot of people. And the bottom line, kind of what we started with, was what does that do? When there's assassination attempts on the head of a party and a former president, fear. What does it mean when banks start to fail? Fear. What does it mean when stock markets start to fail? Fear. What does it mean when there's wars and rumors of war? Fear. Like fear, 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 fear. This is the controlling mechanism that gets people to say, please, government, help us, fix it, whatever it costs, whatever freedoms I need to give up, I will if you'll take care of us. Right. So to me, that's, talking about being philosophical, that's very Hegelian in nature, where it's like, oh, you want to take away people's freedoms that they would never vote for otherwise, create a crisis that's so bad that now they give it up willingly. I mean, I think that's the stage of the world that we're living in right now.
Let me pivot from this and ask a question that seems sort of obvious, but the Patriots out there are going to be very, very curious about, and that is the overlap of the raw ores and minerals markets worldwide with these coming expanded conflicts. Part of the
Mhm.
de-dollarization that has been happening, while it, is very painful for us in the Western world, it also has the double-edged sword benefit of sort of a death by 10 million cuts to the NATO military industrial machine and the ability of that machine to
Yeah.
continue to self-fund its own operations and produce the weapons of war and really what amounts to any electronic weapon of control or a piece of equipment of control that they could utilize for other purposes. So with that as a long setup, how do you see the events, especially with what occurred yesterday? How do you see these events playing out over the next 6 to 8 weeks? We can look at it's just very very interesting. We can look at the memes coming out, and I hate to cite memes as a professional reference, but it's we're in an era that's very unusual, right, in the information world, and it had a combination of the last four presidents and the fact that they've started 16 conflicts between the four of them worldwide, going back to the early days of the 1990s. And yet we saw zero attempts at assassination or even really significant threats outside of those that were spawned off for political gain post 2001, which we later traced back to the same deep state intelligence community that is very likely, allegedly, certainly, but very likely involved in what's happening towards President Trump right now. So with that being said, Dr. Kirk, that's a really long basis for the question that I'm going for here, which is how the war machine, the military industrial machine of NATO is impacted by the events happening and what is in store for these COMEX and ore and mineral markets.
Well, so the largest user of silver, for example, is the military complex. Whenever you have a missile, ICBM missile or torpedo that, gets shot off, there's about 11,000 ounces of silver on each one of those. That's not something that they ever get back, right? It's blown into smithereens. So there's this diminishing supply when that's the largest supplier. And then you've got aerospace and you've got electronics and you've got electric vehicles and solar power and all of these things that are in heavy silver intensive. But to me, the biggest event literally in the world history of silver just happened a few weeks ago, right? It's to me, it's this pendulum shifting moment that is going to increase the demand by so much that the prices have to go through the roof. They have to, because it's a limited supply. But and all of the viewers can Google this. Just look up Samsung solid state battery. Okay, so Samsung developed a new battery for electric vehicles, which I think it's going to apply then to solar power and everything else. But normally, and I used to have a Tesla years and years and years ago, right? And I got rid of the dumb thing because you couldn't take a long road trip with it because it had like a 300-mile range and you had to stop and charge it up and it took forever. And it was just a pain in the butt, right? So, but, and that's the case for a lot of people that have electric vehicles. It's like, oh, they're nice in the city, but they're not so good anywhere else, kind of a deal. Well, they all use the kind of batteries that we have in our cars, those big heavy things that are a liquid electrolyte based, right? That are toxic. I mean, you can't throw away a battery in the normal fashion, right? Because it's so toxic. And so, funny how the environmentalists all want battery power, right? So it's just weird. But anyways, what Samsung developed is a solid core battery instead of an electrolyte based battery, liquid electrolyte. So, what is the solid core? Silver. And each electric vehicle, for example, and this is why I think this is a game changer. Every electric vehicle will need about 1 kilo of silver, so 32.15 ounces. And what does that do? What's the net benefit? A, it's smaller and lighter. B, a normal liquid electrolyte battery, like we're all used to, has a shelf life of about 10 years. A solid core battery made of silver has about a 20-year lifespan. So it's double. The range on a vehicle right now is about 300 miles. The range on an electric vehicle with solid state, silver core batteries is 600 miles, double. Here's the big game changer. It takes about 17 hours to fully charge a modern day electric vehicle. Under the new battery technology, full charge in 9 minutes. 9 minutes. So here's where, what electric vehicle maker
Remarkable.
in the world is not going to want that, right? They're going to want to be ahead of the curve. So I was talking to, after I had exposed this a few weeks ago on a show, I got a call from a guy who works for a European auto company. And he said, Kirk, that is so spot on. And I said, so how long till full implementation of this? And he said, probably 2 model years, right? It's not going to happen right away. It's probably 2 model years out because they need to retool. But here's the kicker. They need to actually start buying the silver for inventory for that buildup within the next 3 to 4 months, which now coincides with a lot of the industry experts and people who follow the commodities markets are thinking silver could hit $50 to $75 an ounce by the end of this year. SG, it's $30 an ounce now. Going to 50, that's like a 60% gain in the next 4 months, right? And oddly enough, big people like Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, they've all predicted that gold should hit $3,000 an ounce in early 2025. So let's look at those numbers. $3,000 gold, $50 silver, that's a 60-to-1 ratio. Everybody, every one of my clients for the last couple of years has bought in at silver about 80-to-1. That will trigger our first ratio trade where we can compound people's ounces of gold by liquidating the higher growth silver to start rolling into gold and getting you more ounces of gold than what you could have purchased today. This is one of the fundamental parts of our strategy that's going to be key. Now, another event I think that is going to propel that and accelerate that is another round of banking failures. So, we saw 5 banks fail in the havoc that wreaked on the markets when Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic, and Signature Bank and all those went under in March of last year. Well, I think we're in for round 2 with banks being severely undercapitalized. Even Goldman Sachs just lost $6 billion on their credit card division. It's like, dude, that's a lot, right? That is a lot, right? But
Incredible.
why Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, right? One of the wisest investors in the world, he's sold $7 billion of his Bank of America shares since July. It's like, man, that's like a month and a half. He's getting out of Dodge. And why? If that was your second largest holding and you thought that the banking sector was going to do amazing, well, wouldn't you keep it or even buy more? Not only is he not doing that, he's selling it like it's yesterday's trash. He's getting out because banks are undercapitalized. In today's world where you've got higher taxes, higher inflation, delinquencies rising, he knows that the banking sector is in for a world of hurt. So he's getting out of Dodge. That's my speculation. But to me, actions speak louder than words. So I think you've got that's on the horizon. You've got wars and rumors of wars on the horizon. You've got this crazy election cycle year. All of that is very propellant sparks that cause gold and silver to go up. In a world where our foundations around us are eroding, that is one thing that's actually an amazing thing that will make us smile.
It's absolutely incredible, Dr. Kirk, the times that we're living in right now. And that ties me into my second to last question here. And that is with respect to this election cycle that you just mentioned a moment ago. We have an October surprise yet to be seen before us. We have remarkable predictions from pulpits that you would never expect to be predicting the types of changes in the entirety of the commodities index, not just, of course, in precious metals, but metals are one of the main drivers of a great deal of those changes. So if I may, and feel free to rein me in if I'm asking too broad of a question here, but what is a reasonable expectation when President Trump says Kamala crash, when President Trump says, a 1929 style event here in America, and we're moving I think at this point, less than 6 weeks really, or right at 6 weeks out from the most pivotal election of our lifetime?
Well, I think that he's actually spot on. Don't listen to David Muir on the last debate, which did 55 fact checks on Trump and zero on Kamala. It's like, what? It's like, what? When she was just spewing off lies, but it doesn't matter. Trump was debating three people on that debate, not just her, right? So when Trump says that, here's the biggest thing. She wants to tax heavily. Um, she wants to continue with entitlements and handouts and all these things, probably for in the sake of public health, lock down the economy again because of pandemics that are coming. I mean, all this is bad for the economy, but let me focus on one thing, and that is her capital gains tax proposals that are Biden's, that she has said, yeah, this is a good thing. And that is a 25% unrealized capital gain. What? Unrealized? That means you don't sell it and you're taxed on it just because of its value. And then a 44.6% capital gain on once you do sell it. So let me give you this example. And this is where it's absolutely Marxist philosophy. Let's just say that your grandmother owned a house for the last 50 years. She paid 50,000 for it, and now it's worth like 500,000. Okay. So that's pretty typical for something you've owned for that long. But now she gets slapped a 25% unrealized capital gain on that property at some time during the year. It's like, oh man, that's a $400,000 gain at 25%. She's going to have to cough up $100,000 in an unrealized tax. And maybe she doesn't have money in the bank. What's she going to do? She's going to have to sell her property to pay the unrealized capital gain of 100,000. Now, when she sells the property, there's a 44.6% realized capital gain on that. It's like, what? And this could apply for stocks, bonds, whatever, right? It's like, and I'm not a tax professional, but I'm adding this up. And when you've got 44.6% plus 25, that's almost a 70% rate in that scenario on capital gain that's going directly to the government, right? It's like her tax policies are going to destroy the economic fabric of America. That's just one. That is just one.
Breaking the
The
back of the Federal
unrelenting
Reserve as well.
printing of money
Remarkable.
by the Federal Reserve, which they have to do, SG. There is no other option for them other than to print Venezuela style, because we lost our petrodollar status and the built-in demand for our currency when the BRICS nations gobbled up United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Iran and Argentina, and basically OPEC, right? They basically acquired OPEC. And so now they took away the petrodollar status because they're not trading in dollars for 70% of the world's population. They're trading in their own currency, which there is no built-in demand for our currency, which is why Speaker Johnson is so concerned about a government shutdown, because in the past, yeah, let's just raise the debt ceiling. Let's just pass this omnibus spending bill because there's built-in demand for our currency and they could get away with it. Now they can't. They can't, because there's ramifications to losing the reserve currency status that we have.
We are in for an incredible ride these next 6 weeks here in the United States of America. Dr. Kirk,
We
I just want to thank you for a remarkable discussion today. Everything from Silver State core batteries to the weapons of war to the Federal Reserve, Bank of America, and Warren Buffett, and so much more. It shows why the worldwide, extraordinarily unusual warfare scenario that's playing out has occurred in the fashion that it has. We're so interconnected and interdependent as a society and on one another. And this, I think, is one of the most in pivotal and incredible times in all of history to be able to sit on the sidelines and witness. For patriots out there that would like to connect with you and learn more, or who maybe have more questions that we haven't answered here today, how can they get in touch?
Two ways. Either just simply go to KEPM, like Kirk Elliott Precious Metals, KEPM.com/SG, and just fill out the form that says you want to talk, you want to allocate into some gold and silver, protect yourself from this hurricane. And then one of my schedulers will call you back and get you on our calendar to talk to one of our consultants who will really dig in deep into your questions, your concerns, your fears, your goals, your dreams, and map out a strategy for success moving forward for you. Or you can simply call 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900 and just say that SG sent you.
As always, sir, your time is very much appreciated. For Patriots out there, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and have learned a lot. It is worth noting again that Dr. Kirk took time away from his family to bring us this message today because we are living an incredible, historic, and in some cases, I would say, very spiritual and biblical journey, reshaping how we do things in the world. God bless everyone. I'll be back with each of you again soon on the Q News Patriot. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye-bye.